With the fall of the Mubarak regime and the general stand-down of security forces in early 2011, many archaeological sites in Egypt were targeted by looters. Abydos was no exception. By day, the holes, piles of broken bricks, scatters of artifacts and bones, and freshly exposed, damaged architecture testified to their nighttime efforts. Multiple gangs of looters were coming onto the site every night, some directly from the villages, some via desert side roads and tracks. There could be as many as 15 or 20 per gang, and some of these gangs were armed. They would announce to our unarmed site guards that they would be back, and if they found the guards still there, the guards would be killed. Together with local antiquities officials, we tried, but were initially unsuccessful in eliciting any effective response from local security forces. The IFA expedition was in the unexpected position of having to do what we could to counter this threat to the site. The IFA team had been evacuated, leaving our on-site manager, Ahmed Rega, together with our Rais, Ibrahim Muhammad Ali, to coordinate efforts on the ground. I was in regular contact by phone, sometimes while incursions by looters were happening in real time. Our first response was to bring on as many additional guards as we could, to have as great a physical presence on the site as possible. Eventually, we had around 40 guards, which included a rapid response force of young men who could quickly reinforce regular guards in responding to new incursions whenever they occurred, harassing and trying to drive off the looters. Expedition staff also organized a campaign of nighttime deception. Shots fired by starter pistols and flare guns sounded and looked, from a distance, like police weapons firing. Guards marching in step and calling out loudly, "Wahid, Nain, Talata, Bab," and "Yabasha," gave the impression that police were being led around the site by their officers. Without a real police presence, though, any unarmed effort at stabilizing the security situation at the site could only have limited effectiveness. For many years, the police had stationed an armored personnel carrier near our field house, affectionately known by Abydos teams as the Tank. With the general security stand-down, the APC's presence was irregular at best, and the officers in charge less than responsive to concerns. With no tank visible, the looters knew the police were not there, and the site was vulnerable. In desperation, our staff attempted an audacious plan of subterfuge. They designed and built a mock tank. This consisted of a shell that fit over a car, and that at night and from a distance would look like the real police tank. So I hope that this video will play. So here they are, trying to drive the car in under the hill. And here is the final product. After some weeks, these measures, together with a partial redeployment of police at the strong urging of antiquities officials in Cairo, led to the end of the looting. A short time later, in April 2011, I returned with a small team to determine what had happened. We undertook a systematic walking survey of the IFA project area and checked the status of other components of the site. More than 200 looters' pits could be identified, concentrated mostly in North Abydos in the IFA project area. Around half of these had not done real damage, as they were dug into old spoil heaps or into natural sands and gravels underlying the site. A significant number, though, could be seen to have damaged buried architecture, but the nature of the structures affected and the full extent of the damage could often not be assessed, because almost all of the pits had been filled in on the orders of local antiquities officials as a way of discouraging further looting. This hole, photographed by our staff in February with clear mud brick architecture, looked like this during our April survey. We could tell that there was a disturbance here, but we could tell nothing about really what had happened. In winter 2013, with the support of an RCAEF grant, we returned to the site with the express aim of systematically investigating those pits with indications of real damage and documenting both what the looters had done and the nature of the affected archaeological features. In 8 weeks, the IFA team excavated nearly 70 units, considerably more than we thought might be possible. The main area of focus, the North Cemetery of Abydos, is filled with the remains of thousands of tombs and offering chapels, and the looters often appear to have targeted exposed bits of mud brick architecture, such as this Middle Kingdom chapel. These chapels were built to house funerary stelae and were the means by which the deceased was situated in the ritual landscape of the site. In the cemetery, these chapels are usually accompanied by brick-lined shaft tombs, such as that shown here on your right. These two features illustrate the most frequent type of looting damage. In both cases, looters dug into the exposed wall tops, destroying significant, but very limited, sections of the walls. In cases like these, they didn't exhibit much patience or real determination. Their holes and the damage didn't reach a depth of more than about half a meter. The 2013 excavations documented a significant number of previously unknown features like these, giving us a much clearer sense of both the distribution and range of variability of Middle Kingdom activity at the site. In a few cases, stelae or fragments of stelae were found in association with the chapels, but we have no way of knowing whether the looters made similar finds. Here's a looter's pit in February 2011. In this case, it appears that a randomly placed hole encountered mud brick walls, which the looters then followed to a depth of nearly 2 meters. Our excavation of the same area revealed the nature of the targeted structures and the extent of the damage. This is the top of a vaulted tomb, probably of post-New Kingdom date. The looters dug through archaeological deposits next to the tomb and punched through the sidewall into the top of the burial chamber, but they do not appear to have made any attempt to empty the tomb, and there were few indications that they disturbed burials or other remaining tomb contents. Again, the looters do not appear to have demonstrated all that much determination. In part, this may be due to the harassment to which they were subjected by our staff and guards. Archaeologically, this tomb is an informative window on the long and complex history of the site. The vaulted tomb, damaged by the looters, had been built directly against a much earlier structure, probably of the Middle Kingdom, that was partially rebuilt at this later time. And additional vaulted tombs were in turn built around this initial pair. Close examination showed the early Middle Kingdom structure to take the form of a mastaba with a niched exterior facade, plastered white, which recalls the archaic architecture of the much older funerary enclosure of King Kasekemwe nearby. Garstang, in his Cemetery E excavations, found several tombs of this type along the edge of the processional wadi south of the early royal enclosure. This example extends this distribution considerably to the east. The architectural sequence is only part of the archaeological story here, however. At some point in antiquity, the later tombs were robbed. The bodies inside were broken up in a search for valuable amulets and jewelry. And we have evidence for the organization of this process, a kind of snapshot of ancient looting. We have a pile of bodies in one area, right there. Here's a closer view. Stacked up, apparently staged for being passed out of the tomb. And just a few meters away, we have the work area where the looters, the ancient looters, broke the bodies up on the ground surface. The southernmost part of the North Cemetery proved to be perhaps the most important and interesting area investigated in 2013. Here was the greatest concentration of looters' holes at the site. Arthur Mace excavated here an area he called Cemetery D more than a century ago. In some instances, the looters brought us to tombs that Mace had published, including that of Sitapehu, mayor of Thinis during the reign of Hatshepsut. Mace found his fine block statue, now in the Penn Museum, in situ in the tomb's chapel. Sitapehu had close ties to the royal court and was depicted in the Queen's Temple at Deir Bahri as one of the officials involved in the transport of her obelisks to the Temple of Amun at Karnak. The looters left a huge hole in the front pylon of this tomb. Here, they showed real determination. The hole penetrated completely through the architecture and more than 2 meters further into the natural sand deposits underneath. Like all the looting damage, this hole was fully documented. But it attests to the incredible energy that could be expended by the looters in their search for treasure, but also to their ignorance of the nature of what they were attacking. Another tomb, published by Mace, that of a vizier named Nacht, saw minor damage to doorways, as well as to the superstructure at the rear that covered the main burial chamber. The angle of the brick masonry at the corner of this rear superstructure indicates that it probably was a pyramid, which, if true, would have made it extremely prominent in the landscape of the site. The large tombs of Sitapehu and Nacht illustrate the type of monumental courtyard tombs known from this part of the site in the New Kingdom and later. Perhaps the most important archaeological result of 2013 is the sheer number and density of these tombs. The plan published by Mace is completely misleading. It gives the impression of a few scattered large tombs, but in fact, the dense cheek-by-jowl arrangement seen at the southern end of his plan actually extends over a huge area to the northwest. Here are the walls of one such tomb, north of Mace's main excavations, with surface indications of another similar tomb immediately adjacent. Opening up the looters' pits showed us that the area is completely filled with these monumental tombs. Based on these results, we can now with some confidence suggest that this area may be the primary elite cemetery at Abydos in the New Kingdom and later. The density of monumental tombs is incredible, and certainly should and will be the focus of future research. Our 2013 work, a response to most unfortunate circumstances, determined that, while serious, the damage from looting is much less than expected, and much less than at many other sites. Most often, the looters didn't spend much time and didn't dig very deep, resulting in mostly superficial damage. I'm sure this is in part the result of the efforts of our dedicated staff and guards. In addition, the 2013 work has greatly enhanced our understanding of overall patterns of ancient activity in the North Cemetery. We have a much clearer sense now of how the use of the site as a sacred landscape evolved, and much new information that can guide future research. In this sense, thus, there is a positive side to the grim days of 2011. Thank you.